feels like y'all, position group wise, have a lot of versatility this year. The guys working infield, outfield. How do you guys as a staff make sure those guys are getting enough reps at each spot to feel comfortable in game day?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you start out right early on having to just kind of game plan of what they are, what they can do, and then that's really what the fall was for. Try to figure out some things and kind of who, pieces where they all fit together with this many new players. Different year in that way, right? I mean, last year totally different, right? You know where guys fit. Got a handful of guys coming in that you want to figure out where they fit best. But this go around, it was more a little bit of trial and error. Trying to figure out where they all go. And obviously, you add in a guy like Dixon with that versatility and his flexibility, I think really helps with that. But I think as we get through the winter time, right, you get into those months, you start to pinpoint some things you want these guys to work at, and start to target some different positions for where they're at. And you see what offensively they can do, and you start to kind of envision it all put together. But really, it's a couple guys. You got a couple multiple positions, and you're trying to get them as many reps as you possibly can between practice, early work, and the BPs. And a lot of times, maybe it's a guy, Braxton Trammell, right? He's taking ground balls during individual defense with me in the infield, and then during BPs getting his reps out in the outfield. So just trying to put them in position, like any time as a coach, you want to put those guys in the best position you can to allow them to be successful. So, it is what it is. You only have so much time you can work with them, but you're trying to maximize the reps and also steer them in a direction where they understand, hey, what can I be doing on my own to get myself ready to play multiple positions.
Obviously, that kind of stinks that you kind of have to go through that. But when you get into the bulk of the season, look, guys will go through cold spells. Guys, unfortunately, may get injured. Is it nice that you are going through this because you have the reassurance of, hey, you know what, maybe this young man is designated as an outfielder, but if we've got to move him to second base, we feel comfortable about that more so than maybe you have in the past?
I think it 100% helps you. It's going to help us moving forward because, as you guys know, we've all seen, you have no idea what the season's going to bring, who's going to be hurt. Star goes down last year. You have it every single year. Somebody goes down. So to have that versatility and again, to have a guy like Dixon that has the flexibility to really honestly probably play seven different positions, helps as well. And then that allows you also to just kind of spell some guys, right? Because we have so many new guys that have never played this many games at this level. And to your point, there's ups and downs, there's ebbs and flows, there's matchups, right? There's a lot of different things. And, you guys have covered our season, so there's going to be a lot of guys used on any given day anyway. So even in late game situations, to be able to allow coach to, pinch run for somebody, but then get better defensively in the outfield, I think that flexibility and versatility and these guys getting additional reps at all these different things can only be a strength moving forward for sure.
Coach, can you talk about with the transfer portal? How has that changed your with recruiting? Yeah,
I mean, I think every year every team is different, and we're still evolving a little bit because the change is that you have no idea what's getting ready to come down your way. So you can envision whatever you want for another team, but you go back to you're on the field last year, as our season wraps up and within 48 hours things change a little bit differently than we had anticipated, right, as you're putting together this year's club throughout the entirety of that spring, right? You know what I mean? And so you just gotta, in a lot of ways, and I know you guys asked Coach the question, you got to just keep going one day at a time, right? And it's even the portal doesn't even happen, right? A lot of times until the season ends. So it's not like you can be like, all right, we're gonna go out and we envision this type of player that we're gonna bring in. In a lot of ways, it's you prepare the best you can and you put together the best possible roster for the future that you can. And when these changes come your way, you realize, that this is what it takes to be successful, right? Coach touched on the history, the tradition, and what we've been able to accomplish, and we have a pretty good gauge on what we need in order to be successful at the level we want to be, and also you envision, what you want to do to take another jump, right, and go where we want to go and get to Omaha and win the national championship. So you're always looking to, put the best talent on the field. Obviously within staying in the along the lines of the culture and the type of people that we want to bring into our program. So mixing those things together, kind of taking some blows here and there when things come up and being able to adjust is something that you have to be able to do at this stage and how things are.
To that point, just the newness of this roster, so many guys coming in. Cliff talked about how you guys have had to be patient as a staff. I mean, what has it been like as you've gone through this fall of just having that patience with you guys?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge, right? And every year's different, right? And so in a lot of ways, you have these returners last year in the program. You kind of know what to expect in a lot of ways, and practice is trying to get these guys to stay sharp, stay motivated in our processes and what we do, and understand that we need to continue to go out there and put together great practices, and that's going to pay off. That can be challenging, when you have that many returners, on the roster. So this year it's a different challenge, right? And I think as a coach, every team's a little bit different, and in a lot of ways this team is exciting as a coach because every day we're trying to instill these processes that we know are successful, but we got to get these guys to buy into it, and they don't necessarily have the benefit of knowing, hey, if I do X, I'm going to get the results I'm looking for. And so you're trying to get those guys to understand, and it being a big group now, having Parker Bird and Riley and Dixon and those guys that have been here and understand it, to continue to pull those guys in the right direction, that only helps. So, but that's really what we've been going through all fall, and getting these guys acclimated. And Coach touched on it, they're awesome kids. I mean, they really are. It's a really, really fun group and talented group of guys, all in one room, and that's the challenge for us as coaches this year. And Coach touched on it, is getting these guys to move. And I think for us to look up and say, hey, we know exactly how it's going to go, as he said, that's just not how this thing goes, right? So we're trying to get these guys as prepared as possible, play as many positions as we can. We got to get some guys healthy, and when we do that, it's going to be a fun ride, and I'm sure we'll be challenged like we always are. But the guys are doing a good job of that. We just got to keep pushing them that way. But to me as a coach, it's an exciting team, an exciting year because of the challenges that it brings with this many new faces.
Boucher was a guy y'all recruited a little bit of high school. Played some shortstop as a freshman at ODU. How has he done at that position? Kind of moving back there, it looks like more full time.
Yeah, it's cool. When you see a player from afar, right? You recruit him, and then he goes and plays somewhere else, and then we got a chance to see him twice a year. And honestly, got a chance to see his transition a little bit at shortstop. Right, he comes here, he's playing shortstop as a freshman. They then move him to first base. They had some good infielders, so I'm not exactly sure what transpired there or why the move, but get an opportunity to going into the fall, wanted to just kind of see what it looked like, right? Because until you work with a guy every day and you get a chance to see him play in some games, some scrimmage situations, if you look at Alex on face value, his mobility, agility, it may not scream shortstop, but he's got the ability and the knack for kind of just being where the baseball is, right? Reading swing path, reading balls in the zone, knowing the game, knowing where to be, and you add up with that with the ability to catch the baseball and a plus arm, right? That in all reality, I love Joey Barini to death, and everybody's a little bit different, but that wasn't necessarily his strength. He made up for that in a lot of other ways, where Alex can be kind of put in some spots where he's got to throw off his back foot and do some different things, but he's got the pure arm strength of a big leaguer, so he can make up for some ground. So it's been fun to get him over there and just kind of work with him and dive into this thing and see, hey, what can he do? And he's played fantastic for us, which has allowed us the versatility of Dixon to kind of move some other spots. So excited to see what he can do ahead, but to this point he's earned the right to play over there and done a great job so far.
I know some things are pretty set in stone with the schedule, but obviously adding Coastal for a series, what kind of went into putting this schedule together with this new group?
Yeah, I think Coastal specifically those guys were here for the regional, and I think both teams just kind of enjoyed playing each other, right? And Coach reached out to Coach Godwin, and they kind of talked a lot about doing that in the future. And Coach Schnall obviously taking over there, kind of reached out, and looks like that thing's going to keep going for a little bit, which will be a fun series ahead. But in all reality, you put those things years in advance, and so obviously just putting kind of the final touches when you figure this roster out. But like always, Coach wants to play the best teams that we possibly can and put ourselves in a position to, if we go out and play the baseball that we want to play, be in a position to host a regional. And ideally play the way we really want to, put ourselves in a position to host the Super if we can win the regional. So that's what always goes into it, and obviously we're fortunate with where we're located to play awesome teams in the middle of the week and put together a really challenging schedule.
Coach was asked about not being ranked, and you were talking about the schedule there. Is it more difficult now to even know who's going to be good with all the roster turnover? I don't know how far ahead you look, but is it more difficult now to look down the schedule and say they're going to be good, they're going to be bad, because of how the portal goes and everything?
Yeah, I think really in our time here, and it's only gotten better, right? With the new staff at Clemson and the continued growth of that program. Really here where we're located, seemingly everybody's pretty good at this point between the Dukes and the Carolinas, the Wicks, all South Carolina. And so, I think, again, where we're located, it's always going to be, pretty talented teams that we're going to be playing. And then obviously the conference is a little bit tougher to predict, right? Obviously you get some new teams in there now. And so I think that's the harder part, to figure out where those guys are going to be and what they're going to, be doing. But I think, as you know, Cliff, we don't really get caught up in a whole lot of what the other teams are doing. I think we're trying to put together the best rosters we can, and you're putting together the best schedule that you possibly can, and I think if you go about it that way, we're always going to play talented teams. And may the ebbs and flows of some programs may develop, but I think you're always going to be playing against good competition for sure.
Cliff mentioned the freshmen, just kind of coming in and having an impact. Who have been some of the guys that have stood out to you so far?
Yeah, I think Coach kind of mentioned those guys, but Coach and I will dive into some of the arms a little bit more in depth, I'm sure. But those guys are starting to come on. He's done an awesome job with those guys, just putting them in positions to play to their strengths and kind of what they're going to be, and kind of, again, just identifying maybe the roles that you envision for them, and bringing those guys along in that way. But Coach touched on it. I think Austin Irby, obviously, he's a fun kid to be around, and just his personality, you guys will get to know it a little bit over the next few years. But just kind of has a really good feel for the game and people, and just a fun guy to be around, and confident, and he'll be a fun player to cover. Braxton's a little bit different, a little bit quiet and reserved, but extremely hard worker. So those guys from a position player stand out a little bit with Alex, as Coach touched on there. So there's a nice pretty good core freshman there, man, that can bring a lot of things to the table. And again, being last year being so veteran, it's different, right? And I think a lot of places across the country, you have to play new guys and have to play young guys a lot. You see that a lot more than maybe we have over the last couple of years, but I think it's a talented group, and it'll be a fun group to not only watch this year, but I think moving forward, it's going to be a fun group to follow.
Coach mentioned the change at first base with the double base and some new guys over there, maybe Austin Irby, Colby Wallace. Just how's that transition as a whole gone as a team, and then those two guys specifically, or whoever's going to play, how have they kind of adjusted to that as well?
Yeah, I think it's. I think it'll be fine. Yeah, I think honestly the interesting part will be for the base runners. They're just so have it, right, to run down and hit the base. I mean, for the first baseman, it's really, they're just still going to the white bag, and they're going to play from there. And the few questions that have come up, right, some drop third strikes, or maybe get a forced play that we're going to try to turn a double play at first base, and it takes the catcher to the outside, and just for them to work over there is a little bit unique. It's more questions, honestly, but having these early season scrimmages with the umpires out there, they're able to bounce some questions off of those guys. So I don't think it'll be too big of an adjustment. I think the guys will pick up on it pretty quickly.
How's the tell me where we're going with you and Coach Knight when it comes to Colby Wallace, and how's Colby handling this offseason?
Yeah. Colby's a stud, man. Colby's awesome. So I think honestly it's been fun to watch his jump, I think, from the summertime to now, just watching his presence at the plate. And it's interesting because on the mound I don't really worry about Colby, because I think he's the type of kid that when the game starts and the competition gets going a little bit, he ratchets up a little bit in terms of his focus and what he's doing there, just because he's such a competitor. But it's easy. Yeah, Colby's smart, he's talented, he understands what he needs to do, and it's really just about his arm, right? Because we'll kind of see how things play out, but he's played some first. If he's got to go over and play some third, it becomes a little bit more of a challenge with the arm, and how we're going to use him. But Colby, just because I think our trust in who he is as a player and as a person, and know what we do as a competitor, I find it hard to believe he's not going to be given the ball in some big spots, here early on the mound. So we'll manage it. Coach always does an awesome job with the two-way guys and managing those guys and keeping them fresh. But it takes, as we've talked about before, it takes a unique player to be able to do that. And in my mind, there's no doubt Colby's that type of competitor and that type of talent.
Anything else for Coach?